Welcome back to Switched to Linux. Well, today we're going to go into our Qubes tutorials and we're going to look at the Qubes Manager. This is where you can add cubes, remove cubes, and make adjustments to them. And as we make adjustments to them, you can adjust the firewall, the applications that appear on the menu, the various services, and other items like that. So we're just going to go in there and talk about updating and how you can go ahead and make some of those changes and the basic functions that the global settings have, that the cube settings have, and all of the different elements in order to manage your cubes. So that's kind of what we're going to have a look at here today. All right, so here we have logged into Qubes. Now, a side note here, I'm using Qubes now on the laptop and using the capture card on the main computer. And I wasn't, the very first time I installed it, I could not get the displays mirroring properly. Now it is mirroring properly after some updates, so we are in good shape to run off of the laptop. This is going to save a few extra steps. Now in this tutorial, what we're going to do is we're just going to look at the Qubes Manager. I'm going to split this into much larger sections because Qube is so big as an operating system. There's so much we can cover. In my last tutorial series, we were doing like hour-long videos, and I don't want to do that. So even if we only have a very short video and just have, 10 or 20 of them in the series, so that way it'll be smaller so you guys can look at exactly the things that you need. So today we're just going to have a look at the Qubes Manager. And this guy here is going to manage all of your different cubes, and we're going to talk about how all these different things work. So let's go ahead and do a brief little overview. First is we do have a global settings at the top. This is going to give us some basic Qubes information. We have official templates, or we want to do testing. So if you're doing production, you may not want to be on testing. Community templates are disabled, or you can add community templates. Obviously, adding community templates is going to add some possibility of some possibility of insecurity in there. So be careful with that. And then you can choose whether you're doing stable updates, testing updates, security only, general testing updates, or unstable. Since I'm going to be using this tutorial as a production, and this is on my laptop in production, we're going to stay at stable. And then we have memory balancing. You can talk about the minimum cube memory and additional DOM memory. Remember that DOM 0 is your basic system, so that's kind of what we have. Now, desktop defaults, do you want to show full screen or not? There's tiles, there's tray icons, and then there's some global things. So enter cube, so Control-Shift-C and Control-Shift-V will allow you to do global clipboard, allowing you to share and copy things in between different cubes. And you can set the default as just Shift Control, which adds an extra layer of security, so you're not using muscle memory of just simply Control-C, whatever else. Now you have update checkers. Do you want it to check for updates or not? In my instance, you'll see from the star up here that we do have updates listed because it is set to check for updates. It will never install those automatically. It's just going to check for them. And then we can check for Qubes updates as default as well. And then we have some other Qube defaults. So the update, to do updates, it runs through your sys firewall. So this is your basic ClearNet. The clock cube is sysnet. We have the net cube is the sys firewall. The default template is Debian. You can change this to any of the other options. During setup, you recall, I set Debian as our template because I like Debian over Fedora generally. Of course, I do have the option to do something in Fedora if I want to, which could give you different, newer versions of software or things like that. So that's all your preference. And then here is what is your disposable based on. So your disposable is one where you can spin it up, do things, and then just dump it, and whatever you do is kind of done. So we're going to go ahead and close that out. That is what we have in our global configurations. We have the firewall is another configuration that we can set. And Not sure why the firewall was not booting things up. There we are. Select the firewall. And this is actually going to be each one of these things here. We'll get into what these are as we look at our templates and stuff. But this will just allow you to add different firewall systems and settings to make the adjustments that you want inside your system. We have an emergency pause. We have a shutdown. So if you want to, something's kind of goofy, this is going to stop all CPU activity in the selected cube until the cube is unpaused. Now note that most of these tools up here will apply to whatever the current cube selected is. So there are different options out there that we have. We can delete a cube. We can add a new one. Now we do have the option to view other options inside of our menu. So I have all these items set up. So if I wanted to, for example, take off backup or last backup, I can go ahead and pull that off of the menu like that. That's kind of depending on what information that you want. Of course, the IP is going to list what is the IP address of this. You'll notice the different IP addresses because we're running a system where each one of the cubes behaves separately from each of the other different elements inside of here. And then everything's going to connect to either the system, the system network here for internet, or it's going to connect to the system Unix for Tor-based network. Of course, we do have a system Unix shows us our Tor status, so it tells us that Tor is running. So if we want to boot something up in Tor, you can go ahead and do that. Now, a few things to notice here. The net VM is going to show you where things are connecting to as far as your internet. You'll notice that your template VMs, so there's our Debian and our template, you'll notice that they do not have any net VM. So if you need to do some change or configuration, install new software, you're going to need to connect it to one of your net VMs, run your changes, and then it's recommended to take it back off. Now, we have some states over here. The green button means it is currently on and running. The icon over here means there is a download or an update rather available, so you can go ahead and do those. And then if we went ahead and did an update and, for example, our personal cube is running, let's just go ahead and right-click and start. So the yellow means it's just in startup mode, and then it's going to swap to green. Now that our personal, which is based on Debian, is running, if I update Debian, we are going to see another icon which indicates that there's been changes to our main template VM. In order to get those changes, whatever those updates were, then we will have to restart the cube in order to do that. Now, somebody did ask about if you harden Firefox, will that apply to the other cubes? And apparently it does not. Apparently it will only take the software, not the whole configuration. And I can tell this because I actually went in here, and what I did is I came into the Debian 11 template VM, and I started up our Firefox over here, and I just made a few system changes to Firefox. I basically made Firefox the way I like it. I changed the default search engine, and then I basically just made a few adjustments to the settings and things that I like. But when I go into my personal cube and I load up Firefox ESR, then what we notice is that none of those changes have applied. So it would appear as though if you can harden one Firefox instance through a template and just go ahead and push that across to the personal, well, that's probably not going to work. Why? I don't know. So let's go ahead and look at this guy here, and let's push the update button. You'll see that this is going to pull up a system here to run the update. Now, if you're updating it through the update in the Qubes Manager, it's going to connect it to the network stack just to download the updates. But if you were to just boot the thing up and try and install something, you may need to connect it to a network first. Just let that keep in mind. We're going to go ahead and let that do its thing over there in the corner, and I'm going to show you a little bit about other options inside of here. So inside of each one of the cubes, we have our settings, and this is going to give us a lot of information. Now, you'll notice a lot of things are grayed out. That's because we can't make adjustments while the cube is turned on. So let's go ahead and we'll jump on down to, work. Basically same as personal because I've not customized this system yet. Since that one's not turned on, let's go ahead and do this. You can rename them over here, so you can go ahead and if you want to call it, something else, maybe I might want to call it OWIC if I want to be logged in and keep this thing logged into any services related to my Christian channel. I could do that. I can set a color to it, so you can go ahead and just change those. And then you can set the default template. So the default is, of course, Debian 11. I can change it to Fedora. So next time I boot this guy up, it's going to boot up as a Fedora base instead of as a Debian base. Or I can pick one of the Unix. I don't remember what the GW is. I believe the GW is... I just can't remember which ones are which. I think the WS is the workstation, and I think that this one might be one of the network connectors. I can't remember off the top of my head what those are. I'll get information about that. Now, over under the Advanced tab, we have the initial memory and the max. So if the cube exceeds this max memory, it's going to shut some things down. You can set your virtual CPUs, so you can increase it if you need more CPUs, decrease it if you think you need a little bit less. We can include it in memory balancing. And then there's a few other options. You can boot the cube from a CD-ROM. So if you wanted to do that, you can grab it from an individual file, from a block device. So if I were to plug in a CD-ROM on this computer, and I have a portable CD-ROM handy, I would have to move it into the cube using the device manager. We'll cover that in a different video. But then I would have to specify, am I loading a file or something else? We have kernels. If you have different kernels, then you can select them from in here. I only have the 5.10 kernel installed here, so that's our only option. And then we can allow full screen or whatever else. Firewall rules, if I want to make firewall adjustments that apply only to this cube, I can make those adjustments over here. And then your devices. This is where you can choose to move different items around. Now, you can see like Ethernet controller. Now, the thing is that right now, DOM0 is going to be managing a lot of the different functions. So unless you're talking about a USB port, which is managed by a different system, you don't really need to do anything. In the older versions of Qubes, you'd have to know which USB controller to move over in order to use like a webcam. Now we actually have the device manager does that a little bit easier than it has in the past. But if you want to force some particular service onto a particular cube, you can go ahead and do that from right here. Your next tab, is applications. This will apply to all of the applications that are currently installed on our template. So I installed something. I forget exactly which I installed on our template. But what you can do now, it might have been KeyPass XC, or maybe that hasn't installed. Now, what these are over here is those are the items that are going to appear in the menu. So you can see Files, Firefox, Help, Qube Settings, Terminal, and Thunderbird. So I don't need Help, for example, so I can kick that out. And let's see, if this is depending on the build, I may not use Thunderbird, so I'll kick that out. I'll want Firefox ESR. I might want KeyPass XC in order to have password management easy to access. Now you can get to these. There's not a standard desktop file format that is easy to access. So you can run these guys with the terminal, but you may not want to You may not want to have everything on here because that could clutter up your system. Again, you can run things in the terminal, but what you're not going to be able to do is easily find them in the GUI if it's not in this list. Now, once it is in this list, then when you pull down your work, then those items are going to appear in the list. So you can see we added KeyPass XC and we took out help. And those are the way that you change the applications here. And then we have our services. These are various different services. So if you want to force individual networking or individual firewall, you can add those services in. And if you do that, it could pull the services out from other items in the system. So you want to be careful about doing that. All right. So that is how you can manage your network manager and how you can adjust each individual cube here. Let's see, is this guy done yet? So it is. We'll go ahead and hit enter and shut down. Now that we have updated Debian, you'll see that our personal now has this guy here to indicate that there was an update to the system. And what that means is that we just need to restart the system. So go ahead and hit yes on that. Restart the system, and then we will go ahead and see that that goes away. It still says there's an update. Presumably this is probably because, unless there's another update, it's probably because we just ran it, but let's go ahead and double check it. So it still says there's an update. So let's go ahead and push the update again. Let's see, maybe there was something that needed to run the updates twice. I don't know. Let's have a look. So it's starting up the Qube. It's going to go ahead and double check. And yes, there apparently are more updates we need to do. We need to download. Looks like one package didn't get itself updated correctly. Let's see if it does it this time. Yeah, that's what it looks like. It looks like one thing failed to update itself. So it looks like it did actually finish itself that time. Every now and again, you might get a package that just doesn't download. Temporary server hiccup, whatever else. So now it's actually making the actual changes to the packages. And of course, once this guy is up, then if we wanted to install some other software that's going to be globally available, we can do that. Now, I went into the personal and I installed 2 applications. I installed Simple Screen Recorder and Cheese just to test the ability to do screen recording and web camera recording over here. And it actually worked out just fine. So let's go ahead into personal while that's still updating. And I did not add those anywhere in here, as you'll see. So I'm just going to go ahead and boot up our terminal. And let's just manually run Cheese from the terminal. Whoa. Okay, you know what? I forgot about that. It will kill it. If you do not put it in the template, it will kill it on next boot. I forgot about that. So yeah, if you do want to add Cheese to it, let's go ahead and make sure that we go ahead and do that. Let's see. Is it working? Looks like we got a new kernel update, new Firefox update. And since this video is getting a little bit long, we're not going to install the application here. We're going to go ahead and do that on the next video. We'll install the application, and then we'll use that application and this tool here just in order to show you guys how to use the device manager, which is going to be a nice option. So I think we're going to wrap this one up here for now. And then we'll come back next week with a video on how to install software and whatnot. You can see here that the update system is gone, so that has actually worked. Let's go ahead and restart this. And then that's going to make any changes. We can see we also have an update to the Unix gateway. So we'll go ahead and push that one here soon. And from there, that is where we're at. So hopefully this has been helpful to figure out how to run the Qube Manager. Next time we're going to be looking at the Device Manager and how you can run different devices. So there we have our Qubes Manager set up. Now there's one task in there we didn't show you how to do, and that is adding new cubes. The reason I didn't want to do that is we're going to have a whole separate video about setting up the individual cubes, and it's fairly trivial, but we're going to talk about setting those up and how you can set up different cubes for different services. So I'm going to go ahead and set up these cubes for a couple different channels. That way I can stay logged in, check statuses and things like that. And then we're going to go ahead and do a little bit more stuff down the road. So that's why we didn't show you how to add new cubes in the Qubes Manager. But I wanted to focus on the settings here. So hopefully that has been helpful for you. If you have any additional questions about cubes that we haven't yet covered, go ahead and leave those in the comments. I am reading the comments, and then I will build the answers to those questions as I can find them inside future tutorials. Thanks for watching, everybody, and I hope that you enjoy switching to Linux. Thank you for watching this video from Switched to Linux. This channel would not be possible without the backing of the program supporters scrolling on the screen now. You can be a supporter at Patreon at patreon.com/TOMM or at thinklifemedia.com. I also want to thank the open source community who creates such excellent software that makes producing this show possible. Please remember to support your software communities. Thank you, and I hope that you enjoy switching to Linux.